You! I don't like your face!
We are not done yet.
Not done yet, indeed we aren't. During the few runs I've done on Steam, I noticed a couple of things which I do want to address before calling this thing finished. I want to make a new burner using barbecue paste in order to keep the fire down and controllable. I want to glue a couple of screws, and I want to fix the issue of the not properly running governor. I've mentioned the governor last, so it's what I'm going to tackle first. I think the reason why it doesn't work properly is because there's a little slop in the fit between the shaft and the cogwheel here, and pair that with a little bit of run out on these two cogs, it just kicks into action, then it gets flung out of alignment, not contacting anymore, and then waits for itself to come back around, and then it gets another kick, and that makes this erratic action here. So there's a few ways to fix it. Number one would be, of course, to eliminate the play in the shaft and the bushing. However, that will mean either remaking the shaft or remaking the bushing. I don't feel like doing that. The next best thing I could think about is take the pulley out here and take a skim pass along the face. That'll bring the tapered section in further and basically lift this thing off from its post here. Next up, screws. There is twofold here. Number one is I somehow did get in the rush of getting stuff finished and just use standard bolts here rather than making my own type. Now, my own type of screw is based entirely on my aesthetic thinking. I kind of like rounded screw heads, so I'm just going to put these in the lathe and see if I can't pretty them up a little bit. If not, I'll make them from scratch completely, and after that I'm going to blue them. Now, not every one of them needs bluing. I'm using the bluing as a contrast, so these guys right here, they are against an already blued surface. I'm not going to blue these, as I didn't blue the screws which go into the base. However, where there is nickel on nickel, I would like to give a slight little bit of contrast, so the boiler band screws, for example, and the two on the water level gauge will get bluing. Bluing screws really is not that much of an art. You have to be careful, you have to prepare the screws right. So especially when using nickel screws, then you mustn't forget to also file the perimeter and the slot in the middle, clean of any nickel residues or chrome. And then you just watch for the color to change. As long as your surface finish is somewhat consistent, and as long as you didn't put finger dabs or oil onto everything, you can see that now it's already starting to get a little yellow, and I'm going to have to start being a little bit more careful. And I'm just frequently, heating it up a little, letting it cool off and judging what's going to happen, because the bluing process doesn't stop not the second that you put it out of the flame. The bluing stops a little later when the heat has sucked into the whole piece. I'm heating them by the tip, which I don't care about the color anyways, and I'm keeping the head of the screw out of the flame because in the flame there is a different amount of oxygen than on the surface here, and now I'm noticing that the lower part is getting bluer more quickly than the top part, so I'm heating the top a little more. And that's basically all there is to it. You could also use tweezers for this. With the larger screws I'm just heating the tweezers up until they glow red hot and then I lose my grip on them. These tweezers are still working nicely. And once I'm done with my bluing, then I'm just taking a drop of oil and smear it liberally onto there. That stops the process and it somehow seems to suck into the surface that's been freshly created and keeps it from rusting. So here is our first blued screw. Got my can of oil right here. Little drop on it. Oh, that was a little hot still. Anyways. Voilà, and gone it is.
Oh Scheiße, ich nehme das die ganze Zeit in Echtzeit auf. Naja.
And literally the second that I said that, the memory card went full. So anyway, this is where we stand at right now. I also glued the two screws here in the back and those here too. For those, I'm just going to leave them as they are at the moment, these here too. Maybe at some point I'm just going to wing it and glue the nuts in place, hoping they won't crack when I wrestle the screws out here. Well, you know me, I can't live with myself if something isn't the way I intended it to be. So I went in here and tried to glue the nuts into place in order to fix them. Well, here's hoping this is going to work out, but I'm gonna tell you what, if these nuts... So I tried the screws and the nuts didn't even adhere properly. I didn't even break any glue loose, there just wasn't any glue that had come into contact on all fours around, so I just can't be bothered. It's going to have to do looking like it is now. How about maniet? Like this, you read me? Two more screws blued, and I've even got my magnet back.
Gotcha, bitch!
Now, I'll be honest, will I polish and blue the screws in the back here? Absolutely not. The gunsmith of Williamsburg didn't polish the lower edges of his gun barrel, so why do I have to polish and blue screws that nobody's going to be able to see? Improvements I have already made include the safety valve here, where I put an O-ring in between the metal-to-metal seal. I tried valve grinding paste to somewhat improve the seal here, it just didn't work. So the O-ring keeps most of the leaking pressure out. Talking about leaks, you may have seen me point out the pinholes here in the solder joints at the dome. I was tempted to solder that shut, until I wasn't. I remembered what kind of a huge struggle it was to get the heat evenly into this thing because the copper just distributes it everywhere. Then this solder joint, it has now been sandblasted, it has been chemically blued and stuff like that. So I just went ahead and put some JB Weld all across here. And it did the job just fine. There is no more leaks coming from here, and it seems to hold up the temperatures nicely as well. So I'm going to call that fixed. In the meantime, let us take care of the burner. You've seen it in operation. It sure looks pretty. And it works, yes, just not very well. The tank is way too small. I have since run it one other time with diluted spirits and just the two outermost vaporizers. It's just not fun to operate, let's put it that way. You dilute the spirits a hair bit too much, the vaporizers won't work. You dilute it too little, it'll overflow. And once the entire firestorm is gone, it just doesn't have any more spirit left in the tank, and you can do the whole refill drama all over again. So I thought, well, this opening is large enough to just make a tray, like this guy just cut open and a little bit larger, and put some of this burning jelly barbecue paste into it. So I'm just going to take a piece of brass, sheet metal, whatever, and put it into tray shape, solder some kind of a handle onto it, and boom, there you go. Mit Wasser kannst du dann ja auch im schlimmsten Fall einen Zylinderkopf sprengen. Okay. Und wie wenn dir im Winter der Motorblock einfriert.
Gut, naja.